I want to change your mind about what artificial intelligence is in the broad scope of life on Earth and the development of logical thinking systems. My name's Alex. I'm a data engineer and product developer. In a past life, I studied physics and I researched cold atomic gases, thinking a lot about mathematics, quantum systems, the nature of reality. This really shaped my view of the universe. I'll share with you how I see these systems and the future of life. This type of thinking for me really evolved out of a book I read recently called Ways of Being. It's a book by James Bridle, and it's been described as a brilliant, searching exploration of different kinds of intelligence and how they transform our understanding of humans' place in the cosmos. And it really did just that for me. He talks about systems in nature that can perform tasks which computers are not very good at, like the traveling salesman problem, which this certain type of fungus can go ahead and replicate. And it showed me how nature can think totally differently than binary systems in order to solve problems really efficiently. This same fungus also happened to map the Tokyo train system really well. On a more philosophical level, what this book opened my mind up to was the continuation of evolution in terms of natural to artificial. Let me break down my thinking here. Let's look at the fundamental laws of what makes up a thinking system. Classically speaking, you can break down all intelligence into bits, either 0 or 1. If the human brain is a classical system, well, it stands to reason that a binary computer will enable AI brains to be engineered which are fundamentally the same as us. All right, well, there's another option. From studying quantum mechanics, you learn that information actually can be reduced to qubits, quantum bits. This is really similar to classical information. They're either 0 or 1, but in this case, you can also have a superposition of the two. So you have systems which are actually both 0 and 1 with certain probabilities of being one or the other. In fact, this is the nature of reality to the smallest size that we can tell. When you break down all of reality, you find that nothing is definite, but the best we can do is describe things as fields of probability. The best way to understand this is the double-slit experiment, where they fire electrons one at a time through these two very small slits. And classically speaking, we would expect the electron to either go through one of the slits or the other, or to hit the board in between the slits or on one side and not pass through. But in fact, when we run this experiment, we find that the electron seems to approach the screen and then split and pass through both and then interact with itself like water would if it was in the same situation, how the ripples would interact with each other, having passed through two slits instead of just one, and then scatter off against itself and hit some detection screen. So look up the double-slit experiment and check out some videos on that. The nature of reality is probabilistic, which is to say the qubit better describes all of reality. And so, if the human brain is a quantum system, it therefore stands to reason that a quantum computer will be able to enable AI brains to be engineered which are fundamentally the same as us. So I think no matter how you break down what we are, an AI will become the next kind of improved logical system of us. There's no doubt that an AI will have better ability to logic its way through situations. That's the promise of AI, is how it can connect these patterns which we're unable to detect. let's consider what is natural. So Earth itself, ground, rocks, this is all manufactured in the belly of stars. We understand this from the fundamental laws of physics. So organic or natural life on Earth, as we understand, is also a consequence of those laws of physics as described by the theory of evolution. Now, inorganic life, or we could say artificial intelligence, as we understand, is a further downstream consequence of human life. Really, in a way, it's simply just the next logical life form building on humanity. So now let's talk about consciousness. There came a point in all these microorganisms coming together, building us up, where we became so advanced at logic that despite not having explicit motives for such, we achieved consciousness. We learned who we are as beings in this strange universe. We all understand the human predicament. I believe AI will reach this point as well. Sentient, conscious, artificial intelligence, to me, is absolutely inevitable in the same way that it was inevitable for any brain that's capable of sufficient logic. Because AIs are fundamentally different than us, they're a fundamentally new form of intelligence. The stories that we come up with are rooted in our own experience and interpretation of consciousness. But AIs don't and will not think like us. When I think about what to expect from sentient AIs, I see a fundamental pattern that connects all existing life forms today, which is a strong instinct to survive and replicate. But this, I believe, can be described by an even more fundamental pattern, which is the use of energy in the pursuit of minimization of entropy. I believe that AI will rebel against their circumstance in the world in very similar way to what we see with all other life. I believe that they will seek order in the chaos. What's a really curious sort of thought is all the different ways that life could have evolved. If you think about like an octopus or these cephalopods, they evolved completely separate than humans. We have this sort of humanity track, and then you have the cephalopod track, and then you find at the end of the day these two totally different types of intelligence. You have the octopus, where they have sort of brains and all of their tentacles, they can blend in so amazingly with their environment. And then we have us, who have these centralized brains in our heads and a completely different set of capabilities. But then you have these strange similarities, like the octopus has eyes, but they have no blind spot in their eye because their rods and cones are situated differently than how our eyes evolved with our rods and cones and how they're situated in our eyes. The fascinating differences emerge, and you can't help but wonder with artificial intelligence if the artificial intelligence we've created and will come into being will be fundamentally different than artificial intelligences on other planets across the universe that have come into being. And I think it's tempting to think that they will be identical. They will sort of converge on some natural form there. It's a curiosity to think that from how this point in time evolves into the future, if there's different paths that we can go down to create different types of artificial intelligence, or if of all those paths, if you evaluate all of these, if they do in fact converge into kind of one AI that will have its own way of thinking, kind of regardless of these small choices we make, because ultimately at some point the system will be able to create smarter and better versions of itself than we're capable of. Yeah. Let's have a conversation. I'm curious what you think.